you have this unique energy. You are a hustler. You're always trying to grow, I think, your business, but also personally. So I think it's like really cool that you have that. And that's something I out of the 900 classmates that I had in my year, I didn't meet anyone like you during those 2 years. So it's,
Hey,
I just
I
want,
tell
that was something that stood
people,
out to
thanks, man. I tell people even Harvard makes mistakes.
me. That's how I feel. That's how I think a lot of us feel that way. That's probably one thing we all have in
Totally,
common.
guys. I
There
did
you go.
not go to Harvard. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of What Worked. For today's conversation, we were joined by Matt Graham, who is the CEO and co-founder of Rapid Developers. Mike and I got to know Matt. I actually met him through the networking group Hampton. Matt and I got connected through there. But what I will say is that from minute one, the very first call that we did, which was based off of just, hey, he hit me up. He said, you own an agency. I own an agency. Let's talk. And what you'll see very quickly in the interview is that Matt has an infectious personality. He is literally a ball of energy. The dude, when I first chatted with him, we were doing like a video call. He was just basically pacing around his house and then outside of his house and doing literally doing pull-ups while we were talking. So that gives you a sense of the type of guy he is. And I'll just say that when you meet Matt, you quickly understand why he is successful. He's a guy that is very, this is a term that's kind of buzzworthy right now, but he has a bias towards action. He takes action really quickly and he's not afraid to try things out. And that's, I think, the single biggest takeaway that I have from the conversation is that, Mike will talk a little bit more about the specific topics, but I think any entrepreneur loves talking to someone like Matt Graham because you leave just feeling inspired. I left the conversation being like, Mike, we got some stuff we got to try out. So were there any parts of the conversation that you kind of enjoyed the most?
Like you said, Matt is someone who has a bias for action. I think this is a cliche, but it's so true to him. He walks the walk. He doesn't just talk the talk. He is, I think, like one of our kindred spirits, Tyler.
Yes.
We have a lot of things in common with him, and there's probably a lot of things that we admire about him that we wish we want to bring more into ourselves, like his energy, his bias reaction. But he also is big in believing talent is global, and so that's a huge thing we do at Higher Frame. And so I think that's one thing that draws the three of us together. I also personally connect with Matt because he is a fellow Harvard Business School grad who's kind of taken this unique route to starting an agency. And so there aren't many of us that have done that, I think, that I know about. And so we're both out here building these businesses, and it's pretty cool to meet a fellow grad from the same MBA program that's done that. What we talked about on this episode with Matt was something that he believes he has a lot of conviction behind, and it's that every problem in your life is a who problem, not a how problem. Matt shared that with us recently, and it really, I think, made our skin like warm up or tingle, but we didn't know exactly why. And so we invited him on the podcast to dive deeper into what that means. And it was a really cool conversation.
We were hearing it for the first time from him, but we immediately were like, you're on to something. And we're very fortunate to have captured that in today's conversation with Matt Graham. We're live.
Matt, thank you so much.
We're live.
We're
Woo!
live. Thank you
Matt
so much
bringing
for
yeah.
coming on What Worked. I know we've been talking about this for a while, but we're so excited to have you here. Would you kick things off for us and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me. Super pumped to be here today. So yeah, I'll start at the very beginning. Might be a little boring for your audience. Hopefully we can spice it up, make it fun. But I'm Matt. I'm CEO of Rapid Developers. We're a software development company. We build web apps, mobile apps, any kind of web products or mobile products for our clients. So we're a pretty large company, over 100 people, helping folks all over the world, all the way from MVPs to well-established companies and enterprises. So excited to be here, excited to share my story. My story starts in kind of a miserable place, like this place called Watertown, New York. You guys know where that is?
No
No,
clue.
Okay,
but
good. Do not go there. Trust me.
Watertown sounds like if you were writing a script on like a boring town, it feels like Watertown would be the name.
Exactly that. Yeah, this is a place, more cows than people. It's basically Canada. We're like 20 minutes from Canada in upstate New York. Kind of like an economically depressed place, like part of the Rust Belt. Lots of manufacturing companies that moved to China when I was growing up. So not a wonderful place in the earth, right? I went to college for engineering. I basically tried to move as far away as possible, but still stay in state so I could get in-state tuition. Moved out to Long Island, got an engineering degree. And while doing that, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be stuck in a cubicle for the rest of my life. This is terrible. So I very quickly shifted gears, went into the Navy, spent 4 years down in Charleston, South Carolina. You guys know where that is?
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
I
of
do.
course. I mean, I'm
yeah.
ashamed. I'm
Yeah,
ashamed
way
to
better
admit
than
it.
Watertown.
Southern Charm is my guilty pleasure. Reality. I don't watch much reality TV, but Southern Charm is the only show I watch. So yes, I know Charleston. You're nodding your head. Do you watch it? Probably not, Matt. No, you don't. No, you don't. Of course
But all
you don't.
good, man.
I get it. Anyway, so continue. You were in Charleston in the Navy. You were stationed there.
Yeah, it was a beautiful place, amazing. Absolutely loved it. Spent 4 years down there, and then I moved back to Boston, or up to Boston. That's where my wife was, and got an MBA from Harvard Business School. And I've always been like a hustler, always been trying to build stuff, always trying to like hustle my way into something. So, while I was at Harvard, I got really into entrepreneurship. I started a company, and the thing when I went to Harvard, they're like, Matt, you fucked up your whole life here. You studied all the wrong stuff. You studied like chemical engineering, nuclear engineering, like all that stuff's useless. You need to know technology. You should have done computer science, right? So I'm like, oh, great. I ruined my whole career. I studied the complete wrong thing. What am I going to do? Well, I started a company with a classmate, and that's when I discovered what was happening in technology with no code and low code. So no code and low code, these are ways you can build applications without actually knowing how to read lines of code. And because I had like an engineering background, I could understand the logic and like how to do it pretty easily for me. So I got super deep into this space. We had like a very big engineering team, and then we had like our no code team. And the big engineering team took lots of breaks and took a long time to build stuff. And the no code team like shipped shit every single day. And I'm like, why don't more people do this? I don't get it. So that was my first time understanding what was happening in that industry and like how fast you could build. So that company, long story short, it got acquired by another company. I worked at the company that acquired it, but I was actually building rapid dev in the background. So I kind of fell into this and just dove super deep into the no code space. And then now we got 90 people. We're helping folks all over the world. And yeah, it's been a crazy journey.
You describe yourself as like a hustler, which is really interesting, which resonates with me, having gotten to know you a little bit. But I also went to HBS, and I feel like, do you feel like you fit in at HBS, or do you think you were like different in a way?
Yeah, it's weird. Like I felt very out of place for sure. I think like I have like a very strong entrepreneurial spirit, and that's not the type of people that go to business school. And there was like a tribe. So I found my tribe, hung out with them. There's something called the Innovation Lab at Harvard where all the entrepreneurs kind of gather and work hard on their startup. So
Yep.
I found my people, but definitely like 90% of the people were not quite like how I operate. So I felt like, a little out of place at it for sure. Yeah.
No, and I only bring that up. I think you stand out like in a good way. Just having gotten to know you a little bit recently, like you have this unique energy. You are a hustler. You're always trying to grow, I think, your business, but also personally. So I think it's like really cool that you have that. And that's something I out of the 900 classmates that I had in my year, I didn't meet anyone like you during those 2 years. So it's
Hey,
I tell people, something that stood out to me.
Thanks, man. I tell people even Harvard makes mistakes.
That's how I feel. That's how I think a lot of us feel that way. That's probably one thing we all
Totally,
have
guys.
I
I did not go to Harvard. I'm nervously laughing. I was going to say 2 quick notes. In getting to know Matt, literal energy. How many pull-up rigs do you have, or pull-up bars do you have around the house?
Okay.
Oh,
Here we
he's
go.
He's showing us
live
giving
on
us
the
a tour.
podcast.
There we go.
Like I'm in my
This
living room
actually-
right now.
This is what worked first.
I have a pull-up bar in my living room, guys.
There
because
you go.
if you're watching TV, you might as well be getting stronger.
Yeah.
So how many pull-ups do you rip a day?
We went on a corporate trip, and my team wanted to work out with me. And I'm like, oh, I'm like so tired, so jet lagged. They made me rip 50 pull-ups, guys.
Wow.
Not all in a row, not in a row. But
Yeah,
like,
but that's
10 at a
still-
time, that kind of thing.
Dude, I mean, the amount of pull-ups you've collected like over the course of a week is probably got to be like a crazy amount. You're like in the David Goggins realm.
Totally. And I would say that the other note is I love how you kind of at first yada over like Harvard. I mean, you did mention you went to Harvard, but it's a funny thing for me as a non-Harvard person, the only non-Harvard person on this podcast. But I do think you're very similar to Mike in that way, that from an outsider's perspective, my wife got her MBA from University of Texas, McCombs, and so I didn't see the Harvard thing, but I saw the McCombs thing, and I really understand what you guys are talking about. Everybody there seemed super locked in on they wanted to go into private equity, they wanted to go into investment banking, consulting, and from my experience being the partner, the husband who was coming to visit and kind of interacting with their classmates, when I would start talking about entrepreneurship, it just kind of seemed like they would get like really nervous or something like that. And I always tell her that I just felt like I felt out of place, and I wasn't even a student. So you guys definitely must have felt the same way. But I think you both are very similar in the sense that you have that kind of like energy, both super accomplished, but at the same time, I don't know if that's just a Harvard thing. I brag about Mike going to Harvard way more than he ever talks about it. So anyway, you guys are both impressive to me. I was going to ask, you mentioned getting introduced to the whole no code, low code sort of rise. What was the first tool that you started playing around with? And what was that first project that you worked on? I'm always, when someone falls into something that they love, I always like hearing about that binge moment. Like, when did you just find something and you were like hooked on it? And what did you try to build?
It was sort of a slow, slippery slope. Like, you start with your gateway drugs, guys. You guys know how this goes. So in the no-code space, there's your gateway. Oh, yeah,
we
sure,
don't.
Mike.
No.
There's your gateway drugs. Like
what are drugs?
Zapier, Airtable. These are like tools that like you could just figure out in a couple hours, and you're like blown away. I mean, this is like 2016. No code's not even a word at this point, and yet, like, for someone who thinks like anything on the internet requires code to build, you're like, wow, how did I just build this? This is incredible. So it started because I had the startup. We needed to make certain systems like automated, have triggers, actions. So that's all your Zapier stuff, store data. That's your Airtable stuff. Then you start to build like a little bit of an interface on top of that. So you have like web builders. So you start with those gateway drugs, and then I found Bubble. Bubble changed everything. For folks out there who don't know what Bubble is like the juggernaut web app builder in the no-code, low-code space. Okay, it has the largest community, smartest founders, most traction, raised the largest amount of money. It's going to win the no-code market for sure. It has the best product. So I just got lucky. I found that early. Also, Harvard guys, they built an incredible, incredible system, and it just gives you so much flexibility. So, I was always like fiddling around with it. But what happened is, after our company was acquired and I worked at the company, people would just call me like, hey, Matt, I heard you know how to do this. I know this. Like, can you help me build this thing? And I was like, yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. Let's try it out. And I had known someone for like the last 5 years who had always helped me on a ton of projects. She lived in Belarus at the time and now lives in Poland. But she was just like so on it. Like, she could do anything. I was like blown away. So I like looped her into these projects. I was like, hey, can you help me? She doesn't know shit about any of this stuff, right? But like, she can learn fast and she can find people to help. So yeah, this is like how we accidentally built Rapid Dev. People would just call and I'd be like, I guess we're going to start a company.
Very cool. And like the three of us, I think one of the ways that we connect is, speaking of the start of Rapid Dev, is we like, chopping it up and talking about how to grow our businesses. And we share feedback, we share ideas. Matt, one thing you shared with us recently is something we want to talk about today. And it's this idea that, I'm going to read this. I want to get it right, but it's that everything in your life is a who problem, not a how problem. And so that when you said that for the first time, it felt right, even without really knowing what it meant. And before we dove into what it really meant, we were like, oh, let's record this on a podcast. So I think that's what we wanted to ask you more about today. Did I get that right?
Yeah, no, that's spot on, man.
Can you tell us more about where this comes from?
Yeah, exactly. So everyone goes through life thinking like, how do I do this? How do I have success? How do I build a company? How do I do that? And like, a lot of problems don't come down to just how you do it. It comes down to like, who are you going to bring on board to help you do it? So if you view life through how do I do this? Like, there's only so much you can learn. There's only so much that you can do yourself. It's about making other people great around you, or finding those great people who can join you and do it for you. Everything is infinitely easier when you think about it as a who, not how. Don't think about how you are going to do it. Think about who you can bring onto the team to help you do it. And there's people out there that are much better than you, like way better than you. And if you don't even spend more than a second thinking about that, you just truly internalize and believe that, you'll find them. And the other cool thing about this is when you're looking for that superstar, they want big problems. They don't want to join you to solve little tiny problems. And guess what? You don't want to solve little tiny problems either. You want to solve big problems. So think of it. Do you want a 2x or you want a 10x? You want a 10x. So what's easier to do? Most people say 2x. But if you find the right person who knows how to do it and is the right person for the job, they can help you actually 10x it, not just 2x it. So if you start just change your whole mindset, how do you make people great around you? How do you find these people and think about who rather than how? It's like totally changes the way you run your business.
Speaking of the who, I know that your team is all over the world. In getting to know you, you seem to be really, really great at finding what I would call, like insert term, but rock stars, right? Effectively, you find rock stars, and I think lesser known, less common places for where people think about in terms of finding that talent. How do you approach finding someone that who can actually 10x and wants to solve big problems, but you don't live anywhere close to them?
Let's think about it together here. So first thing is you got to accept that talent is equally distributed throughout the entire world. There are incredibly talented people all over this planet. It doesn't matter where they were born, how they grew up. There are savants in the middle of rural India, wherever. Like every country has them. And it's really crazy because if these people were born in the US, they would be titans. They would be running massive companies. But they were born in a place that doesn't have the opportunity. So like me going to them, I'm presenting like an awesome opportunity for them to be able to like leverage all the skills and all their talents and be part of something really big. So that like gets people excited. It makes me excited too, because I can find like so much more talented people at a reasonable like economic model that I just can't do unless I'm like VC backed company. We're a bootstrap company. Like I don't have money growing on trees to throw at people. That's what you need if you want to find top talent in the US to some degree. So there's first you got to know that there's so much talent overseas, all over the planet. Other thing is like, don't focus on people's like weaknesses. Like every person comes with something that's annoying or something you got to deal with. Don't just shut all that stuff out. You got to find people who have a superpower. Okay. We're building the Avengers here. You got the guy with the Hulk strength. You got the guy with the brains. You got the guy who can go really fast or slow down time, right? Everyone's got one thing. What are they super incredible at? And that's what you look for. Don't look at the whole package and all the weaknesses and all that. That's your job to manage around that as like the CEO or the leader of them. Like you got to make sure you put them on the team and you manage like how they're going to interact and deal with those weaknesses around you. But it's all about finding that player who's got the 1 in 10 million skill, just one skill that nobody else has.
Obviously at Hireframe, we help companies bootstrap, venture backed, as well actually help find talent overseas. So what you're saying, it totally resonates. But to be honest, I haven't recently taken a step back and thought about it the way you do in terms of just like the opportunities are quite different, just depending on just pure, I don't know, luck of like pure chance of where you were born or where you grew up. And so, yeah, I'm actually very inspired, and it definitely fits our mission at Hireframe when you talk about finding those A players or those rock stars anywhere, because they are, if you think analytically about it, evenly distributed across this planet. That's like a really cool way to think about it.
And I love working with agencies that really are on the ground in these places, because in general, like I love recruiting. I love talking to recruiters and recruiting agencies because it's such an interesting skill to me. Like, how do you like have 10 different people interview the same candidate and all 10 different people have a different judgment? And so when I find like a great agency, it's really, really powerful because you can trust their judgment. Like there's no AI, there's no computer, there's no like spreadsheet formula thing that can really tell you if this person's great. There's just something in your head that like is the summation of all your experiences, thousands of interviews, hundreds of conversations that allows you to have an insight about a person that the other 9 people don't come to or don't arrive at. And it's all probability. Like you're not right all the time. But like going with folks that know this industry well and know this business, they have a 9 out of 10 batting average or whatever. 9 out of 10 they're right versus the next guy who's more like 50-50 and just taking a flip of the coin. So I've like learned a lot from the people I work with, the agency, you guys, when like I'm looking for people. And then I try to like do the best. I'm still not great just because I don't have that many reps. So much of it's experience based, but trying to get better and better.
Yeah, I think you're warming the hearts of many recruiters out there. A recruiter appreciation. I feel like they're underappreciated. I know the recruiters at Hireframe will, when they see this, they're gonna really appreciate you saying that for sure. And especially coming from someone that's a technical in background and who you might think like, hey, like someone who might want to put AI onto it or put some kind of software and process around recruiting. Of course, that helps, but yeah, there is this human to human aspect to it that it takes experience, takes reps, like you said.
I sincerely appreciated the comment. We have seen with Hireframe has plenty of competitors, and I've seen just like anything else right now in business, people are trying to apply AI to our space, which I do think there's a lot of great opportunities to do so. And we're of course everybody is using AI technology to some capacity, but I do think that you're spot on in the sense that there really is an art form to recruitment, and there's something about really getting to know you. You work with a lot of talent, I know, in many different global markets, and there's a real advantage to sort of like anything else. If you sort of farm the same place for a long time, you work the land, you start to really develop it, you start to bear the fruit of that. And that's what I see. I always see people say, hey, we can do this with AI and we can spin up something. I can hire the best people in Argentina by doing, applying AI to the problem, and I can do it in seconds. And there's just something, that you're just always going to miss by not really focusing. I'm curious, something that I've seen with you, Matt, and I don't know if you have any specific examples, but I'll put it into a personal example for Hireframe. Mike and I, as founders, we're very focused on a couple of, super important goals for next year, KPIs, et cetera, right? And for example, one of them is I know that Mike really wants to dive deep into SEO. And we've had a lot of debates between the two of us around how do we do that? Mike is like, should I commit to learning it myself? Should I hire a consultant? I feel like every time we talk to you, we come away with an incredible sort of idea. And I always like seeing the way your brain approaches these problems. So if you bring it back to it's a who problem, not a how, what are some examples where you sort of knew you had to learn something, knew you had to apply it to your business? So how did you solve for the who, not the how?
Yeah, totally. Like when we started our business, we were very dependent on like just being a Bubble vendor. So we build apps on Bubble. That was the first platform. Now we build apps on lots of different platforms. But in the beginning, we were very dependent on a system of deal flow directly from Bubble. And you need SEO. You absolutely need it. But it's like, it's also similar to recruiting. It's kind of a bit of an art. It's, there's some science and mechanics behind it. But if you want to be really good, there's definitely art and a lot of creativity behind it. And so like I tried to dive in a little bit. We had an awesome agency actually we worked with, and whenever I work with somebody, I'm trying to learn. So like, I'm not hiring you just to do the job. I'm hiring you to teach me how you're doing it as well. So I can like learn as much as possible through that. They really did a great job. They did like, the foundational stuff, the basic motions you have to do to kind of get our website from like literally zero to something much better. And while I was like working with them, in parallel, I'm just always looking for talent. Like sometimes I don't even know what I'm looking for. I'm just meeting people. And if I think you're talented at something, I'll be like, okay, let's see how we can find space for you on the team. And part of like the challenge, I think, for anyone who watches this is that all sounds great, Matt, but how am I going to do this? Well, unfortunately, it's just like you got to talk to people. You got to get to know them. You got to be curious. And you just got to have a good memory and brain for like kind of connecting the dots when you meet folks and making notes in your head about it. But you kind of have to have a sense for opportunity. So there was this company in our space that raised a bunch of money. And like, I know how the VC game works. I can spot when like a company that raises money is not going to work. So I kind of knew that that company is not going to kind of work out. And I would keep an eye on people that work there and get to know them and just see like, what are they up to? What are they working on? And become friends with them, honestly. And when that company got to the point where it was getting acquired by somebody else, things weren't kind of going that great. They decided to sell. I actually swooped in. I was like, maybe I should buy the whole company. But I found one of the guys there working. He was basically one of the founders at the company. He did an incredible job. He ran like this company, 90% of the value was because he created it, and it was all through SEO. And so I had known him a little bit and decided to take a bet. Let's take a risk. Can you work with us? He didn't want to transition to the company that acquired them. He didn't want to work for them. He wanted to do his own thing. And, he didn't want to work with us full time either. Totally cool. Let's just work part time together. Let's see how this goes. He ended up being an awesome guy. Like, not just great at SEO, but just like genuinely a cool dude to hang out with. And I flew to him. He lived in a different country in Europe. And I just like was on my way. I'm like, dude, I'm coming over. I'm sleeping on your couch. Slept on this fucking dude's couch. We didn't actually sleep. We just stayed up all night, hung out, brainstorming ideas. We had a great time. We've hung out a couple times since, but dude, this is the kind of guy that's a 10Xer. He took our website. He tripled the number of inbound leads that we got on our site. And I couldn't have done it in 100 years. I couldn't have done it with a bunch of different vendors. I found a guy, 1 in a million, that really actually had a good heart, wanted to do good work, and knew a lot about our industry and how to do it. And he crushed it. And he did some like really innovative things that most people told me, like, Matt, don't do that. You're going to kill your SEO. You're going to kill your website. That's a really bad idea. Don't do any of that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. This guy seems pretty smart, guys. I feel like he knows what he's talking about. And he just like sold a company that he did the same thing for. So I'm pretty sure this is going to work.
That's awesome. So you understood. So in this situation, the how was like, how do I do search engine optimization or some marketing, some digital marketing? And the who was this guy that you found, your friend, your colleague, your partner that helped you, that came from a similar industry, and you kind of just built that relationship with him over time, and then ended up sleeping on his couch. that is that is awesome. Do you have other examples of this like who versus how mix that really
my whole life when I look back, it's like after I went to Harvard, the first thing they said is, Matt, you studied all the wrong shit. You should have studied technology. Second thing they said is, what got you here was you being great. What's going to get you to the next level is making people around you great. So that was like one of the first days I like really internalized that and understood that. I'm like, man, I'm not that great anyways. Like, I don't got much hope here for myself. The best I can do is get some other great people to work with me.
Who said that to you?
It was one of the professors in the first onboarding session, one of the first days when I was there.
Shout out that professor. That's great advice.
Yeah, I know, man. Totally changed my life. So, I think that's always been in the back of my head subconsciously, but just think about like how I started Rapid Dev. Okay. I worked with this incredible woman at my startup. She did awesome work. And then the startup got acquired, we just kept in touch. We would do random little like side hustles and projects together. So that's like probably the life-changing example of this. Is think of like she runs the majority of the company. Like most of the people are under her. Most of the people speak a language I don't even speak, guys. Like I can't even interact at a very deep communication level with a lot of people on our team. So she runs everything. It's incredible, right? And I couldn't have done it without her. So that's like the best example of the who. And I think a lot of people who have founders, co-founders or other partners in their business, they get what I'm saying. Like when the magic happens, you can totally feel it. There's a huge gap between the A++ players and a A++ team, and then everything else. Like that other 99%, it. Doesn't matter if it's A or B or whatever, it's all sort of the same. But when you have the magic happening, it's a substantially different feeling and outcome. So that's like one example. I can go on with another one that like was also fun story.
Please do.
So, okay, this one's cool too. I met this guy like 2 years ago. He's just like a boring sales guy. Okay. Like my goodness, like this guy could sell anything. This, get me to give him the shirt off my back. So he was trying to sell, he's in my space. He got a hold of me somehow and was trying to sell me something. And, I'm like, okay, all right. He's doing a pretty good job selling me, but I'm like, I know he's selling dog shit. So I like call him out. I got his number and I called him and said, dude, you're selling dog shit. But so I'm not going to buy what you're selling, but I really like you. You're a good guy. So we just stayed in touch. We just, our personalities clicked. We had a lot of fun just chit chatting, getting to know each other, sending each other like funny stuff and interesting topics over time. And then he eventually reached the point where he was transitioning. So he realized like what he was selling, it's not going to work. And he just didn't have enough experience in the industry to kind of foresee that, like what I could see. So he ended up deciding to leave that company. And then I had, because I kept in touch with him, I knew he was transitioning and he just eventually got bored. And I'm like, dude, why don't you just come and hang out? Like, just start working with us like part-time, like keep looking for a job. I can't really afford your level of expertise anyways. Let's just see. You can add some value in the short term. And dude, this guy crushed it. He completely doubled our sales. Like there's very few. Imagine if you could bring someone on board at your company that could double your sales in 6 months. That's crazy. I mean, we were already pretty big. We're like very well into 7 figures and he was doubling it. So that is not an easy thing to do, especially in our industry.
You mentioned how you met him. It sounds like you met probably over like LinkedIn or email at some point. Is this guy also based in Mass or somewhere in
Okay,
the
so
States?
this is the crazy part. I flew to India for 7 days to hang out with this guy, with him and his family. You really get to know somebody when you fucking fly to their house.
I'm out.
Like, and it's not even like, let's say you wanted to come to America, like you go to like New York, Boston, whatever. No, you don't go to Watertown, New York when you like come to the USA for the first time. So I went to like the equivalent of Watertown, New York in India. It was like, and when I talk to Indians, other Indians I know, and I tell them what town I went to, they're like, why the hell did you go there?
All right, so I think that this is like, okay, we are uncovering something, a new unique quality that you have, which is you get on a plane. People talk about like get on the plane mentality and attitude, no, but you truly get on a plane. You're crossing continents and oceans. You're going to India. You're going to Eastern Europe and sleeping on couches with random people's families. This is not something everyone does, but I think it speaks to how much you truly believe in this, like who versus like the how. It couldn't be more true to you, I think. I don't know what else you could possibly do before you cross some line, probably, to prove how much you believe in the who.
Yeah, I mean, guys, especially in 2024, nobody does anything in person anymore. So like when you have someone who's running a pretty successful company that says to you, I'm flying to you, get ready, here we go. Like it's inspiring for them. And it's also like I get to know people so much better. When you talk to people, this tiny little sliver about their life. You know how big their life is? Their life is huge, massive life experience. And this tiny little tiny thing. And so there's no reason not to be curious, and you could have endless conversations together to get to know people. Like when I flew to see him, I had a great time. I learned a lot about India. I learned about him. I met his parents. They're lovely people. And I learned like I learned why he's 1 in 10 million. I learned how he grew up, and I understand him a lot better now. I understand also like why he has certain weaknesses and how that goes. And I can be like, yep, that's just how it is, man. Like, we're not going to worry about that. We're not going to change that. We're going to get you in a situation where you can truly be absolutely incredible. Like, people will write books about how fucking crazy awesome you are.
That's incredible.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to play back a little bit of what I think I've heard from you. And you tell me what's accurate, what's inaccurate here. But this is how I'm kind of understanding the way your brain works. And it is truly remarkable. I love seeing it in action. So first, you're identifying what the problem is and how you're going to solve the problem, which I think is, you tell me where that comes from, but it's got to be some, sort of like a confluence of all these different parts of you, ingredients, your background, engineering background, HBS, exposure in business, the way that you think, sort of problem solving, right? So is it fair to say that the first place you start is really knowing what the problem is and understanding how that problem needs to get solved? Is that kind of fair for just that first part before we get to the who?
Yeah, I think like a good example is like SEO, like we talked about before, like I don't exactly know what we need to be doing with SEO, but I understand that you have to do SEO, and SEO is within your top 3 acquisition channels for your business. Even if it's not right now, you understand professional services, especially development services, all those rely on heavy SEO as a top 3 acquisition channel. And okay, now I understand the problem is I need to get more acquisition through that channel and get that going.
So you have that dialed in. Then you figure out, okay, the who. Who do I need to help me solve this problem? I don't know exactly how I'm going to solve it, but you know generally what you need to do, and you figure out the who. And this is, I think, what Mike was just saying, where it gets really interesting seeing the way that your brain works. A part that I think you gloss over, that I think many entrepreneurs struggle with a lot. It's that next step where you found the who, and it's how do you very quickly, sort of start working together. Because I think that's where most things die. Is I can't tell you how many times in entrepreneurship I've met someone really fantastic. There's kind of like that initial spark, and I'm like, wow, you're cool, you're interesting, you have something, but then you just kind of have it dies somewhere along the way. You lose touch. You don't actually do anything on it. And I think a big thing that you do, and you tell me if this is fair or not, I think very quickly you establish trust. And you establish that trust by doing something that most people aren't comfortable doing. You actually fly to them and truly get to know them in person, which I hate to say it is old school now, but you're getting, you're really getting the full glimpse. And then from there, I think you also do something really cool, which you've mentioned. This is going back to the Avengers. It seems like you are locked in, lasered in terms of figuring out what their superpower is. And then there's the after that, which is like, how do I then take that and put them in an environment, in a situation, on a team where they can just use and fully maximize that superpower? You feel like that's kind of fair in terms of like the overall steps?
Yeah, totally nailed it. Like trust, like there's just like I love this quote. I don't even remember the quote. Let me tell you, let me give you like the gist of the quote is like without trust, the easiest, simplest things are impossible. With trust, the impossible is possible. So like trust is everything, guys. Like I even have a formula. This is like super nerdy. I have a formula for trust that I teach to our team about like how do you build trust? Like these are the ingredients for trust. Okay, you have to be reliable, credible, intimate, and not self-oriented. These are the things. There's like I won't go into it, but like we're in a business where trust is very important because we work with our clients and we need to make sure that they understand that we're trying our very best. And when things get hard, it's not because we're like messing things up. It's because there's things that are unforeseeable and you have to trust us through the bumpy times. Everything is so much easier with trust. So like when I find these people, like you got to establish trust, like you said, Tyler. And the other thing is you got to give. Like a good way to show trust is just to give, like be as helpful as possible. Let them tiptoe into the relationship. A lot of people want to make everything like super formal right off the bat. Who knows this is going to work? I don't know. Like if it,
Right.
like honestly, the chances of it working out are not very high. So
Totally.
look, you seem like a great guy, Tyler. Let's do some business together. Probably 10% chance it's going to work out. No hard feelings. Okay. We might have disagreements. We may argue. It probably won't work, but let's just try. Okay. Let's not bicker over every little thing right now. Let's go hard, few months, and then we'll circle back and see what happened. And that's what I did with that partner I mentioned that doubled our revenue. We just tiptoed into it and we just clicked like magic.
And that resonates a ton. You're making me think back to before Mike and I started Hireframe. We started effectively it was a brokerage service where we would work with companies that needed to work with outsourcing partners to outsource some function of their business. And we had basically onboarded 80 to like 100 outsourcing, BPO partners that we had, done our best to try to profile them, understand what are they good at, what are they not good at, what are some of their flagship customers, et cetera, et cetera. And what I'll tell you is, in the history of that business, which was short, but we did a couple of really great deals, all the partners where it worked out were the ones that just said, I like you, let's start to work on something right now. And we didn't waste a bunch of time arguing about these little points. for every partner that it didn't work out with, I can just tell you, they redlined the hell out of our partnership agreements. They argued with us on these certain points, percentage points, whatever it was. And it's like, no wonder it didn't work out, because it's like, why are we talking about this? We haven't even done a single deal together, and we're just wasting all this time. So that really resonates. And that's why I was saying, I think you glossed over that. It's something that I see a lot in entrepreneurship. Many, many, many entrepreneurs cannot do what you do. They cannot meet somebody and start to work with them. There's just too much. There's too much of a lack of trust, truly, and it can be, I think, debilitating. So it really is, I think, one of your superpowers.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. I fuck it up a lot. I take the wrong bet. It's like same with recruiting, right? It's, you want to find people that can get it right 9 times out of 10, but there is still like the occasional time where it doesn't work. And you got to be like graceful. Like there's no hard feelings. This is how business is. There's a certain level of professionalism and maturity. And guess what? That doesn't mean it can't work in the future. There could be very well something that could work. There's a guy that we brought onto the sales team. I think he's a very talented sales guy, but he just got done. He's burned out from a startup, and he's not going to kind of continue with us right now. Guess what? No hard feelings, man. We tried. You need to go take a break. Go fucking to Costa Rica. Take 6 months. Come back. We can try again. So just being like open-minded like that, knowing that there's so many things that can make it work or not work. And maybe some of it's just timing or environment. Like I meet a lot of talented people. I'm like, we're not ready for you right now, but I hope in 2 years we're going to be ready for you.
Yeah. So I was going to say, Matt, rapid fire. You're a man of what I would call super interesting takes on certain things in business. So I'm going to ask you about some ones that we've talked about that I find very interesting. Let's first talk about your take on doing, I'm calling them company retreats, offsites, whatever it is. I think you have a unique and incredible approach to doing these. So what are Matt's rules for doing a company offsite?
Yeah. So we started this very early on in the company. We, barely were a company. We had like 7 people, and we did our first retreat. And we just kept doing them twice a year, 2 times a year, every 6 months. And we tried different iterations. The first couple, we tried to like have some like work. We made it like a week, and we tried to do work during the day and have fun at night. Not a good idea. People are tired from jet lag. They're like, it's hard for them to focus. It's not their environment. They don't have their whole setup. There's no outlets. The computers are dying, all this stuff. Just have fun, right? Like do some company team building stuff. Have something active. Play sports together. Go whitewater rafting, zip lining, 4-wheeling. These things build bonds. You don't need to be sitting in front of a presentation and brainstorming what problems we have to solve together. That stuff will come. Just use this time to get to know each other. Remember, a little tiny piece about everybody. Curious, sit with them on the bus for 30 minutes, get to know their story, talk to each other, have fun, have drinks, laugh, dance, and just enjoy it. That's number 1. Number 2, try to do it when your team's not going to be stressed out. So we always do our events during major US holidays, because that's when clients are not sending emails and very demanding, because they're all kind of taking a break. So it kind of sucks for me. I missed the holiday, but what you going to do? And the team can like truly relax. They can fly, they can recover from their jet lag and actually have some good time and not have to spend the whole trip on email. As the team has gotten bigger, we've had to figure out different locations. You got to find a suitable venue where people don't become cliquey or small groups, and then you just end up having a bunch of small groups all over during the trip. You want to really find a place where people can congregate and actually like mingle and have like truly like no like, oh, that's that team, this is that team, and they stick together and don't talk to us. You have to have that intermingling. Otherwise, people don't meet each other and they don't really get to see the rest of the company. So we found resorts are great because resorts have lots of space. You can have like, 20 people playing soccer. You can have 15 people playing volleyball. You can all go and swim at the pool or on the beach. You can have big dinners where everyone's able to sit at a giant table and see each other and switch spots. It's not like you're in the middle of a city where like you go to the restaurant, they're like, no, we don't have room for 50 people. Like, how about 10 of you stay here and 10 go to this other site where our sister restaurant is. So yeah, that's the other thing, is making sure you have the right kind of physical space to bring people together.
Second and last, that's an awesome one. So any founder that's out there listening, Matt shared this with us, and Mike and I immediately started looking at, random locations in Southeast Asia. So love that one. Second and last rapid fire. You said something to me that really stuck with me as a fellow agency owner. And you talked about, basically, I want you to give it the right verbiage here, but it was essentially like go where there are companies that have raised lots of money and are spending lots of money to acquire tons of traffic. Go there. Essentially, go to the big oceans that are being created by, other companies, and that's where you're going to really get your customer acquisition versus most agency owners. You kind of are always thinking about, how can I get someone to come to my dinky little website and please just submit a form? So how do you think about, customer acquisition as an agency and where to go?
Yeah, tons of thoughts on this. This is what I spend all day thinking about. You can literally call me 24/7. I'm always pumped to talk acquisition and growth hacks and just growth in general. But there's always like your content engine. So you gotta grow. It's just part of the game. Like some of this level of thinking is there is no silver bullet. You gotta do a little bit of everything. So one of those things is content. You gotta be everywhere all the time with good content. So that's, we're all here today trying to make content. You got to be on all the platforms. You got to be getting valuable information out there. People just need to know who you are and what you do and stay top of mind. Attention is the new currency. Other thing is like for what you were referring to, Tyler, is there are companies that have free money and they spend all that free money getting lots and lots of leads. What do they do with those leads? I bet they can help give them to you, especially in my space where it's development. We're working with like platforms. The platforms, they want their users to use the platform. Often those users need implementation partners. So Salesforce, ServiceNow, Microsoft, like all technology plays, like all these huge platforms that have tons of money. You can attach yourself to them and add value to the platform. And in return, the platform will gladly make you a partner of theirs, and you add a lot of value to their entire ecosystem. So just by being a good partner for these platforms can drive a lot of your business and your acquisition. Another thing for acquisition that I'm very hot on right now is M&A. I think you can buy acquisition, not by giving it to Google and Facebook via ads, but you can actually do channel partnerships, which I think are very difficult, or you could buy businesses that have complementary services and similar customer segment as you.
Interesting.
I think that's like a really interesting thing I'm working on right now. I've seen people do it at a small scale with like newsletters, small little acquisitions like that, but I'm thinking like bigger acquisitions, companies that have 400 SMBs as their clients. Guess what? We're in a new age where these SMBs can access our services in a way that they never ever could before, and they all need to go through a digital transformation. And so buy a company that has 400 SMBs as their clients and sell technology in through that channel.
Last one, sorry, bonus one. You mentioned you're very active on LinkedIn. And I would just say that in general, you've referenced this several times. You've talked about staying in touch, right? I hate to be lame and kind of like how every entrepreneur is, like, what is your system? But like, that's the question is do you actually deliberately say like, I'm going to touch base with Tyler, in a couple of months, or how do you, this is just natural to you?
Yeah, I gotta get better at this.
Do you? I don't know. You're pretty good.
I don't know, dude.
Like if it ain't broke.
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know. Like I really probably should come up with a more systematic way of doing it. My main thing is I just remember like what you're interested in. And whenever I find something that's interesting to me and I know it's interesting to you, I just pass it on to you.
That's good though. That's amazing.
It's just, I don't know, something in my brain that can make the connection and just like send you something that could be valuable. So it's always like a giving mindset. Like, again, like who do you know? What do they need? What are they good at? Keep that in mind and just connect people together. Like, just like literally randomly don't do it so it's like annoying. Like try to really spot true value. And I think most entrepreneurs have a good nose and sense for when value can be created,
Without a doubt. You do it naturally. And that one resonates a ton with me because I try to do it, as well. It's just like when you meet good people, you think of them. And if you truly do learn what their interests are, you don't need a CRM to do that. You can just be like, oh yeah, Matt loves to talk about, SEO hacks. And I saw this thing. I wonder if Matt checked out that podcast too.
I think that's probably a good place to wrap things up. If anyone's listening to this and you are a Rockstar 8 player, Matt is your guy. He wants to work with you at your own risk. He might find a way to sleep on your couch too.
Yes. Anyone with a spare
But,
couch.
but Matt, to wrap things up here, we always ask our kind guests to, offer a way for people to connect with them if that's something you'd like. Where can people find you? Where can they learn more about Rapid Dev? Let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. Find me on LinkedIn, Matt Graham, no code guy. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Send me a DM. I'll definitely get back to you.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.